All right. So good afternoon or good evening, good morning, depending where you're looking at this. So today is our fifth LDP session. We're slightly changing the format for this one. With me, I have my good friend and distinguished alumni, Ari Stillman. So Ari has been involved with the fraternity from when he first joined in the University of Rochester. And after graduation, he's been involved with the executive board, serving 4 years as the president, national president, then helped formulate the board of trustees, where he served also for 3 years there, and still being in countless meetings and interviews and getting together with so many different alumni. He's well connected all around. So I figured it would be a great way for him or for us to have him present to us. And the topic that we want to discuss is Qurbani, or giving back as alumni. It's a great topic, especially for Ari, because he's written a paper, a master's thesis on something related to this in terms of alumni involvement in fraternities. So I figured it'd be a great person for us to talk to, especially for our fifth LDP session. So thank you, Ari, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Prati. I appreciate you organizing this and taking the time to chat with me and get to catch up a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So, before we get started, just curious about, your interaction or your involvement with the fraternity. So you joined at a time where, we can say mostly it's predominantly South Asian based, right? You're a young white Jewish boy. What introduced you? What made you want to join SIGRO in the first place?
Sure, like any young impressionable freshman, I just wanted to hang out and make friends and have that college experience in Rochester, at least at the time. It was just a super diverse chapter, brothers from all over, from Ethiopia, Somalia, Vietnam, Taiwan, what have you. I just thought that was normal. It's like, this is like a great cosmopolitan type of environment, people from different backgrounds and countries too. I get to learn a lot from them. And yeah, so when it was time for to the process, I got a couple other bids. I chose SIGRO because I felt the most natural connection with the guys, and did the whole process. And of course, we had some group events and learning the founders. They were all South Asian names, and I was like, oh, interesting. Like, didn't really think too much of it, coincidence, whatever. Just being very naive at the time. And then I remember going to convention. I was kind of dragged to convention in summer of 2005 in Richmond, and it was like all South Asian guys. I'm like, whoa, was I totally bamboozled here? Like, what's going on? And come to find out, like, Rochester was one of the outlier chapters, along with Seattle at the time. And but apparently that was like what was desired, right? To diversify, to have more of a multicultural background. And so as I kind of got more involved over the years, which was never really an intentional thing, I was like, I saw room for change. I thought I could be that change, not to invoke the whole Gandhi thing, but I thought I was best suited for it. And when the time came, like when I was even before I was on the national board, I was like, I want to make the fraternity that I thought it was, that it was promised, and that people seem to want it to be. So I did a bunch of different initiatives on, there's a document floating around somewhere called Taking the Road to Diversity. I did a presentation at a convention in Atlanta in 2007 with Frank March from USF on that topic, and have kind of trying to diversify for a long time after that, and with a fair degree of success, I would say. We did like a survey way back, God, this would be like a decade ago, but I think we were like 68% South Asian, 2/3, which I think for multicultural fraternity that started as purely South Asian, that's not too bad. And who knows what we are at now? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I always remember that, right? Like, even back then when I was on the board, Rochester Kappa chapter was like the epitome of what we wanted. Because I think it was like, yeah, there were definitely South Asians there, but there was, like you said, a whole bunch of non-South Asians that were there. I think you guys won the Remembrance Awards. I think 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row.
Award for Remembrance, and we got the chapter of the year. I think that
was
I forget what year that was.
06 or something. Yeah, I think that was like my last year on the board, or around that time it was there. I remember that. So there was definitely that the potential to increase that kind of cultural awareness that we wanted, right? Like when I joined in 98, that was that kind of thought process, right? We didn't want to be another just Indian fraternity or South Asian fraternity. We wanted to diversify and show that, you know what, it's not just, it's only, you know, white fraternity, a Latin fraternity, black fraternity, Asian, it's, no, we're multicultural. We want everyone involved with it.
And I think we were an outlier there, not just in the Greek life sense, but you look at where the conversation's gone over the years, and emphasis on multiculturalism and cultural awareness and sensitivity to others and all these things. And I think the kind of environment that a fraternity affords, where you can kind of joke around, learn from each other, say the kind of things that you probably couldn't and shouldn't say to a work colleague or someone on the street, whatever, but you know, it's all in good fun, you learn from it. And you know, being a pseudo safe space for that, it was very much an outlier. And I deeply like appreciate that kind of experience. I feel like I'm able to connect with so many different kinds of people because of that, just dropping little cultural tidbits here and there to show like, hey, like I have some exposure here. I'm not just what you see. And it's helped me make a lot of friendships, both just, you know, in not the business world, but also just the general real world, whether it's, I don't know, you pick a setting and I can find something to connect over.
So, you know, again, before we get fully into that topic, you know, good point here, like how to form friendships and relationships and connections. So, you know, the fraternity affords us that opportunity because we're kind of forced to become friends with each other, whether it's during the new member education process, right? Or becoming active members at the undergraduate level. So how do you translate that kind of experience into like the real world, into like a working place where, yeah, you don't have those kind of connections where you're sitting with someone for 4 years or forced to do push-ups or whatever it is with them? Like, how do you build that kind of relationship like that?
Yeah, I mean that's a super operative and important question, and you can't really replicate the model that we did for a variety of reasons, but most of all because the opportunity isn't there. You know, if you're in a business setting, a professional setting, there's certain topics you don't want to broach unless they're broached first. You know, you feel out the room, you feel out the vibe. You can't just kind of jump in, or in our case, be thrown in and have to figure it out and work together to, you know, complete tasks and activities and what have you. So it's very difficult in that sense. But what I've gleaned the most helpful is just finding those points of connection. Like I said, so, you know, if I have a colleague who's South Asian or Jamaican or whatever, just some random thing like, hey, like he's Jamaican, right? And I'm like, hey, so I haven't had a good beef patty in a while. Like, do you know any around here? Like, I just figured whatever. It's like, oh, how do you know about that? I'm like, well, I had this experience, blah, blah, one of my best friends, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, it's a launching point. And that makes you like a real person, as opposed to this drone where you kind of put on this professional facade, which is what you get a lot in the white collar workforce, at least.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I know, you know, one of my biggest challenges, or you could say like weaknesses, is I don't feel comfortable in like kind of social settings unless I know people. So like in the beginning, after I graduated school and was going to, you know, I was working as a consultant. So for that, you have to go to different projects all the time. And then you have all these social events, annual events that you go to, but you don't really know the people there because, like, you know, you go to your home office. So for me, it was New York, but my projects were like in Atlanta, North Carolina, whatever. So I didn't really know anyone there. So I took a lot of the, you know, that point, like you kind of just mingle around with people. Then when they talk about something, you find out their background and you're like, oh, hey, I remember this kind of thing. I had this kind of experience. What do you think? And then that starts the conversation. So that really helped me a lot with like breaking the barriers, or just breaking the ice, you know, just to try to meet people and understand people's backgrounds.
Right. And really any point of connection that you can find, especially in that situation where you're kind of in a stranger in a strange land. You don't know people. I mean, one of the things that I appreciate about Dale Carnegie's book, To Win Friends, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about try to find one thing about a person, anyone you interact with, that you genuinely like, and compliment them on it. And that's an overture. Like, hey, Pradi, I like your glasses. Like, where'd you get those? I've been looking for new frames, whatever it is. And you're flattered, and that's an overture to something else, and we'll see where that goes.
That's a great thing. I should write that down. That's a great strategy. Ari, I like your beard. It looks great.
I trimmed it since the last time we spoke.
So, again, when we're in the undergraduate world, right? Yeah, we're forced to kind of hang out with each other in the sense that we're brothers now, right? We've either crossed together or we're part of a chapter now that we're doing everything together. And I remember, like, it was such a cool thing. Yeah, so here's my set of friends I have, the social group that I have there. We go to events together. If the school is doing things, whether it's like, campus activities, we're always involved with it. I think you even wrote about that in your paper, that there's like some studies that show that those who are in Greek life, they tend to be more active socially on campus than those who are not on Greek life. I forgot, I think there was a percentage you even wrote in there, like 80% or 78%, something like that. So, like, why do you think that that's the case? Like, why, being in a fraternity system, or in this case, SIGRO, why would that translate into like a more social, or more reason to like get involved with their school at the school level?
Yeah, on multiple levels. I mean, one is it's a matter of showing up, right? I think in certain cultures, there's a big emphasis on showing up for each other. And that's something that SIGRO really kind of pounded into me, especially, being a younger chapter, but we had strong regional ties to Binghamton, to Boston, to wherever, to Buffalo, Syracuse, and you show up for each other to events. And that habit that you begin forming begins to bleed over to other things. So like when I got involved in student government, I ended up becoming one of 3 like members of my class to represent them in student government. I had never intended to do that, but I was kind of in the habit of showing up to things. And one of my line brothers was like, dude, you'd be great at this, show up to this, like come check it out with me. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come with you. And the whole point of that was just to come with him, right? But then I got really interested in it as well. I'm like, this is a really interesting opportunity where I can kind of do something positive and give back. And that in itself then led to a lot more connections and opportunities that I've been able to leverage since then.
And then, so, because you have that tendency, or nature, sorry, that we crossed together, right? We went through everything together to become it. So now we're brothers for life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember again with undergraduate life, yeah, you're right, that showing up mentality is there. You go there because that's what we do as undergrads, as brothers, as representing our fraternity. And then that works almost till graduation point. And then sort of I guess what we want to talk about, or focus on with this conversation, is post-graduation. What happens? I know from my years on the e-board, and I think had multiple iterations of trying to set up some kind of alumni group, right? We see that alumni involvement drops drastically, right? From like going every Friday night, Saturday night to parties, or doing whatever the community service activities we were doing, or just spending time with one another, playing basketball, whatever it is. Life now starts getting in the way in terms of getting a career, starting a family, right? Finding a spouse, starting a family, like that. And we see that this concept of involvement just starts dropping, like considerably, not even like a little bit, like significant droppage, especially as the years go on. And I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, why do you feel that? Well, first, I guess maybe the first question is, what is involvement? Like, what does it mean to be involved in a fraternity organization post graduation?
Yeah, let me circle back to that. So one of the issues is in a fraternal setting, right? You're on campus at a chapter, you have what's called organizational embeddedness, which is the idea that you are embedded in an organizational setting. It's exactly as the concept says. When you graduate, you're removed from that setting. And so it's a lot easier to kind of fall out of things, out of these habits you've formed. The other issue is there aren't that many meaningful spaces or opportunities for alumni to connect, to kind of be part of that organization again, whether it's in roles or happy hours, bowling club, bhangra, whatever, but any opportunity with brothers kind of brings back that organizational embeddedness to a degree. And it makes you remember this is the reason for our ties, for our connections. And that sparks everything. It's one of the things that I think, and you think as well, because of your own involvement with the National Alumni Board and such, historically, and the foundation as it is now, to kind of bring back these spaces, have these events, have regular meetups, just to kind of have the fraternity involved in people's lives. So going back to your question on involvement, what is involvement? For us at a college level, right? It's how we contribute, how we go to chapter meetings, we show up for our brothers, we do this or that. Once you become an alum, because of the lack of opportunities to be involved, it often becomes, how do you donate, and it's often a binary because of that. You get this also in the sociology of religion, in church studies, where if you at the more affluent churches, the members will be less likely to volunteer their time, but more likely to donate. At the less affluent churches, more likely to volunteer their time than donate, because it's what they have to give. So one of the things I found in my research is that among the alumni, across this binary, there was a solid size, I want to say about a quarter of them, who self-defined as being involved with their fraternity outside of these capacities, outside of having a formal role or donating money. And that could include going to a happy hour, calling up a brother to chat, hanging out one-on-one in a group, what have you. Because of the embeddedness, it brought things back. And so they felt that when they were interacting, like we're hanging out right now, for instance, I feel like even though we're doing this seminar thing, I feel like we're hanging out and I'm involved in the fraternity just by virtue of our conversation. And so one of the issues, I shouldn't say issues, but one of the things that I would challenge other alumni to do is just to ask, what would involvement mean to you? Like, what does that look like? And you think about the concept of Qurbani, which is the theme of this talk. As an undergrad, I mean, even as an alum, like Qurbani is sacrifice, right? You're showing up for one another. You're doing something for them that might inconvenience yourself. What does that look like as an alum? Is it still important as an alum? Is it donating, or is it showing up like a brother's going through a hard time? God forbid, gets divorced or a parent dies, something like that happens. He's short on cash. There's inflation, who knows, like all these different things that come up. What does Qurbani mean as an alumnus? And I would challenge everyone to kind of reflect on that and what that means to them if they still care, because that's really, I feel like Qurbani is really the essence of our brotherhood, right? Of how we give to each other. When we give to each other, we give to the organization. And that's what it's all about. It's about fostering the brotherhood. You give to give again. It's a constant process of giving. And in the giving, you also receive.
And I think maybe that's part of the issue at hand, is that the idea of giving, it's attributed to money only, right? Like, in order to vote in our board in the elections, you have to give money. In order to run for a position, you have to give money just so that you can be an active alumnus, or whatever that definition of active is. You may not do anything for the rest of the year, but if you give that, whatever, it contribute towards the alumni campaign or give a due or whatever it is, you're considered active. And then we see that in a lot of times, not a lot of times, there's instances where alumni, at least what I've seen, they stay connected with their chapter, right? Their line brothers or their school members or whatever it is. But then to go at a national level, they're like, I don't really care, right? Because they didn't build that foster that connection that maybe others might have, or they did with their own group setting. So, in your research, like like organizations that have been here a whole lot longer, right? Like how do you see them, or do you know if they have these kind of similar problems, or how do you see them, like, you know, kind of overcome those obstacles? Because I hear when you have like conventions of, like, say some of like the historic Black fraternities, they have, like, you know, they roll 2,000-3,000 deep to a hotel or whatever it is for a convention. Here we're at the state where we're kind of mandating people, schools, to send 1 or 2 people just so that we can have people attend a convention. So yes, age is definitely there, right? Like they've been here a whole lot longer than us, but what kind of techniques do you think they've done where they're not just involved they don't stay like involved with just their local guys, but B, they also stay involved with one another nationally and want to attend like all these type of events, or like you said, give back at a like a bigger level.
Right. Well, it's not just age, because you have these older NIC fraternities, Union Triad, et cetera, all these older historically white social fraternities, and they have the same issue. I mean, that's really what inspired the project itself, was to try and solve a problem for the fraternal industry, the fraternal milieu, if you will, and just figure out what works. What's interesting about the NPHC organizations, Divine Nine, is that they're much younger than those other organizations, yet far more successful, as you said. And the reason being is because, as I mentioned before, they have these meaningful roles. They have alumni chapters, they have city chapters, they have all these capacities to be involved and stay engaged. And that's something that is just so priceless and pivotal to fostering those brotherhoods beyond undergrad. I mean, besides anything that I find statistically significant, like, sure, a leadership position, values-based recruitment, you know, all the closest friends, these are all positively correlated with alumni involvement. But you really want to sustain alumni involvement, you simply create the opportunities for them to be involved. That's something we've not done well, at least. Besides e-board, there's a regional advisory committee, you know, some other national volunteer roles, but we don't have the infrastructure, or haven't at least, to provide opportunities for brothers to be engaged, and that will make all the difference.
Now, do you think that's something that's like the responsibility of, say, the board of trustees or the executive board at hand to kind of create or instill this, or is that like kind of the responsibility of alumni, like together? Like, do we need someone official to tell us, hey, we're creating an alumni chapter, or is this like something that should just kind of grow on its own because people want to have it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a political question. And I'd say it depends. On one hand, do I think the fraternity as an institute, as an entity or institution, excuse me, should be providing these structure and opportunities? Yes. On the other hand, if it comes from top down, that may not be received well. So I would say, like, for instance, Georgia Tech in Atlanta, as in general, has a really strong, high functioning alumni presence. That's a model that needs to be replicated, but the brothers have to want it. The alumni have to want it and see the value in it. That's really what it comes down to. You have to see the value in it. And if you care about it, you know, one values what they work hard for, yada, yada, you know how it goes. But it just, if they don't make it happen, it's not going to happen, because if it's forced, if you're an alumnus, you have no reason to really comply to go along with anything. You could say, I'm moving out of my life. It's not for life. I don't care. And that's true. That's whether you hold that oath to be sacred or not is a personal question. But if you want opportunities to connect, to engage, to stay engaged, to meet other brothers who have had similar experiences or even different ones and learn about those, to expand your network, to have a social out, you know, aside from family and friends, then why wouldn't you? If it's a low commitment issue, like maybe one event a month, I think that's super reasonable.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. This idea of wanting to, right? Like, yeah, again, undergraduate life, we're told, yeah, you know, Greek life, this is the cool thing to do. This is the way to do it. You join it. You hear all the different things, you know, sigro till the day I die, brotherhood for life, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. When you graduate, what is the need? Is there a need? Like, why do I need to stay involved, or why do I need to be connected? How do you
So that's
answer
the
that
existential
question?
question.
Right.
And I can't answer that for anyone. But for me, it was because I felt I had given so much that I wanted to stay connected to this. It had become something I internalized as part of my identity. And I so cherish the friendships I made with brothers, the memories I've had. And it wasn't just like, okay, graduating, moving on. That just seemed like such a slap in the face. And I wanted to stay involved. I wanted to be there for my brothers. I wanted to help other brothers kind of in their walks of life. So it's a personal question, but that's something everyone needs to answer. And I think a lot of people don't even ask the question because they haven't had to.
Yeah, and you wrote about that earlier in your paper. You wrote something like in regards to that, where like there seems to be a level of involvement based on one's experience in the undergraduate world. I mean, hazing, that aside, but post crossing, when you're now a brother, those memories that you have, like if you're involved as an undergrad, like I said, where it was just hanging out with the guys, playing basketball, whatever it is, doing some kind of event together, those are the things you remember and you carry that on. So like, I know from my own personal experience, I remember like just, especially as our senior year, right? A lot of us are going to be graduating that year. So we just spent a lot of time together with one another. I don't think we even had a line the spring semester. So there was no stress about like new member education or whatever. It was just, we're all getting together. We would hang out at the house there, go play basketball. Like at one time we were playing basketball in the middle of the night, just like things like that. Like we were having wrestling contests in the house. But whatever it was, but that was like a fun event, like fun time. So that when we graduated, at least the first few years, we were always hanging out because most of us lived in New York, at the city at the time. So we would get together, whether it was after work, over weekends. Then of course, the weddings started, so you're going to attend everyone's weddings. So there was a lot of that. But again, over time, just like I said, life gets in the way, and instead of seeing everyone every weekend or every other weekend, it became like once a month. Then it became like once a quarter. Now it's like, okay, someone's wedding. And now, unfortunately, it's going to be some people's, families are passing away. So you're going to attend funerals. So we only get involved now kind of those kind of like life-changing events, but not, hey, let's get together and just chill like that anymore, just because people just be busy, right, all the time. So do you owe, like, do I owe, like, the friendships I have, I definitely owe to the fraternity, but the friendships after the fact, I don't think it's like fraternity necessarily. It's the fact that we all became friends and we were friends together. That's what kept us, that connection going. Not Sigro per se, but just friends with that came as a result of being in Sigro.
Right. Right.
So I'm just, thinking, especially with the way our new member education process is there something else that we should be doing or looking into, especially with this group of the next leaders that we're trying to create this for this LDP program, leadership development program, like what kind of strategies or concepts should we kind of encourage? Like, I don't want to use the word teach, and I don't want to use the word enforce, right? Because that's a level you can't force people to do things they don't want to. But what kind of things can we encourage at the undergraduate level so that when graduation occurs, there's still this kind of sense of, I want to belong, like I want to be a part of, I want to stay connected. Maybe that's the best way phrase. Like I want to stay connected to the fraternity in some aspect.
I think a lot of it has to do with just the opportunities to hang out, to do things together. I mean, one of the things I really have bemoaned in, it's not even recent years, it's been a while now, but the regional connection isn't as strong as it used to be. And those regional connections are so important, like hanging out with other brothers from other chapters, where you may know your school, you may know the scene, and you go to another scene, and they're kind of onboarding you much of that, helping you, taking you out to the bar, what hookah lounge, what have you. But you're that very experience of someone holding your hand per se. I mean, not literally, but doing something together. It doesn't have to be planning an event. I mean, that's stressful and you may not want to do that, but like a social thing, like visiting another chapter, hanging out with the brothers there, going out doing stuff, a joint mixer with another sorority, a different school, whatever it is. But just the more opportunities that to form connections with each other, the better.
And
And
then
it takes planning. It takes planning, and I acknowledge that. Like, it's
yeah,
definitely not just something I'm throwing out there. Like, oh yeah, this is super easy. Someone has to step up, and usually it's going to be a couple people because you could share the burden that way. But again, you have to want it. Like, what's the point? Like, people join for a reason. What is your reason? And make it happen.
kind of like reflecting on that again, like, yeah, I joined for XYZ reason because I had these principles in mind, or these ideologies that I wanted to follow. If it's still true to me in this postgraduate life or post-graduation life, how do I keep that going? How do I keep that strong?
Right. And this is one of the reasons why, even as an alum, like, I wanted to go to new member education sessions, not for the educational, like, not for pledging, but to kind of be there for the ritual, for those parts that kind of remind me of why I'm here, what this is about, and to kind of be there for them as well. And like years ago, with a couple other alum, we wrote an alumni ritual for that very purpose, so that outside of that setting, we're still taking another step forward in our engagement, our relationship with the fraternity. That doesn't really require any real commitment. It's just pure ritual to remind ourselves of what we are committed to, why we're committed, and to take a step forward in that commitment.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good idea. I know, again, in one of our iterations for the I think it was for the National Alumni Association, the second phase or whatever, we were trying to create graduation packets, just saying, hey, undergrad, you're about to graduate. This is now an important part of your life. We want to be there for you. So it's like, it wasn't nothing fancy. It was just like kind of like a certificate, just saying you're now considered an alumni, like a basic, like a pin, that's, the alumni pin. And like, what was it? It was something else. Oh, just the newsletter. Like, we want to give like a newsletter and say, you're involved, you're an alumni, you're involved. There's no money needed for you to be involved with us. Just stay connected. We want to stay connected with you. And then if you chose to give some money, then you get some, then some of those other perks come in, like the discounted packages, whatever it is, like discounts every, that kind of stuff. But the idea was, we weren't looking for money necessarily. We wanted you to stay connected first and foremost, whether it was locally or not, regionally or nationally, and just stay with us, like stay informed with what's going on with SIGRO in your area, so that if there's some kind of event, you're more than welcome to come. So that was the principle that we had in mind. Again, didn't really work out as intended, but the concept was, I think, was the right one at least at that time.
And it's important too. I mean, these little gestures, the pin, like the membership card, all these things are so important, and they've been kind of overlooked a lot in pursuit of bigger picture items. I shouldn't say bigger picture because it's a matter of priority. For me, nothing's more important than maintaining the brotherhood and fostering brotherhood. I don't care about KPIs. I don't care about any metric for ROI, whatever. It's the intangibility of brotherhood that's important. So like when I was president, like 12 or so years ago, I wrote a letter to all graduating seniors, got their addresses, put it on like a nice stationery with our letterhead, and sent them a letter and saying, like, this is from memory, so it's been a while, but like, hey, you're graduating, the fraternity's here for you. If you want to be involved, like, here's different ways to do it. Wish you all the best. Thank you for being part of our brotherhood, whatever it was. And those who I talked to received it very positively. I have no idea what impact that had, longitudinally. There was no follow-up. I transitioned out of office at some point, but these little gestures to stay involved in the lives of our brothers, especially graduating seniors. I mean, that moment is so pivotal. That liminal moment where you're moving from one space to the next, and you're not really sure what to expect in this space. You're told, about responsibility, jobs, family, all these other things, but you don't really know. And there's a resource there, other brothers who've done this already, and that needs to be communicated better and more effectively, because we've gone through it. The older guys, yourself especially, but the older guys you've been through so much, you've learned through so much, and that could be passed on, that could be shared, like basic stuff, like, and I'm spitballing, like even how to do taxes, how to incorporate your own business, how to navigate a prenup, whatever, just these life questions. And sure, you can Google it, or maybe you could watch a YouTube video, but wouldn't you rather ask someone you have a connection to and have that kind of personal connection? I would, at least.
And it's a good place to plug the SIGRO Foundation, especially like the things that I'm working on. In addition to this leadership development program, right? This is, like I said, session 5 of it. What we're trying to do is create the next phase would be a mentorship program, where we would look for alumni who want to be mentors and undergrad/alumni who want to be mentees, and plan, kind of merge the two, or marry the two together to find pairs, so that the older guys or the more seasoned guys can help out the younger guys. So that's the next thing that we're working on. And in addition to that, we're trying to create, I would call it kind of like groups for just like topics in general. So whoever's interested in real estate, or whoever's interested in taxes, whatever it is, that you can just connect together, right? It doesn't have to be that you have to meet in person or do Zoom calls, whatever it is. It's just, now we're all connected, so that if there's a topic at hand you want to discuss, you can do that. And another thing, partially why I wanted to do this format as opposed to like the other formats we've done for the previous LDP sessions, is what I'm hoping is that we can start a kind of like a fireside chat, right? You and I were talking about this, but make it more formal, where hopefully you can interview or talk to informally different alumni, and just see their involvement, what they have done in the past, how are they still staying connected with the fraternity, and really what impact they're making in their communities as a whole. So I think I'm hoping that these little things can get people not necessarily say involved, but make them inspired again to want to connect, or to want to just reach out and talk to other alumni first and foremost. So
Yeah,
that's my
absolutely.
plan anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's pivotal. I mean, it's a great next step. There's been a lot that's been talked about over the past however many years, 15 years, about different alumni initiatives to stay involved with the mentorship, especially professional, like not associations, but like you said, like real estate interest groups, we'll call it that. Ways to ask connections, or make connections, ask questions, get help, what have you, but just to keep that alive and keep those opportunities there, as opposed to posting in the alumni group, hey, I have a legal question, or hey, any real estate agents in Miami, whatever, but having those kind of avenues already created to have those conversations.
Yeah, that's going to be my challenge, is to just figure out what channels to use, right? There's so many different platforms nowadays, so the more we can expose ourselves to, the better it'll be, I think, for more alumni to somehow connect. And again, going back to this topic, right, like giving back, I think you agree with me in saying that it's not money, right? Money is probably the last thing we want to say that alumni should be giving, especially because we're still trying to figure out how to use that kind of money. Like, what do we need that money for? Scholarships, yes, we're giving out scholarships to the foundation, so that's a great place to, that's where the money is going to be used. But there's more to it than just money, right? There's like you said, giving your time, giving your energy, giving your ideas,
giving yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, to be connected to one another, and thinking about how you can help the next generation as well. So I know, like when I graduated, or when I joined rather, we had 8 brothers. right? 7 of them were undergrad, or 6 were undergrads. And I think only Saif was like the only graduate at the time. I think he was working for Goldman Sachs then. Everyone else was undergrads. So at our rush, they were saying, yeah, don't worry. When you graduate, you'll have a connection. We have connections at Goldman Sachs. Everyone can work there. We're all like, what, really? And then we find out there's only one guy.
Yeah, the original Flash.
And that, but that transposed from that day, whereas 8 people into, what is it, 3,000 now, something like that. I don't even know what the number is, the last count. So, it works.
But that's exactly it. When I would do these expansion presentations and travel, there was certainly some embellishment involved. But my goal in that was to make that a post, like something to achieve. Like, here's the fraternity I'm selling, but I'm trying to make that a reality. And I think that's what we need to get back to and start doing that with the alumni engagement.
I agree with that. So for this, for the people who are watching this, what kind of advice would you give to have them give back? Like, what ways should they be able to give? Can they give back? So most of them will be undergrads, some of them will be graduating soon, or some are just recently graduates. So any ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in a manner that's meaningful for them, whatever that is. That's up for them to decide. I don't want to kind of be prescriptive and say, X, Y, Z.
Right.
I don't think money should be a barrier ever for involvement, which is why I've been against it as the mandatory donation, if you will, to run for eBoard or anything else. I think people are involved in the ways they want to be involved. They give back how they want to give back. And that's something everyone needs to kind of ask themselves and negotiate. So figure out what's interesting for you, what's meaningful for you, like what's something that's has meant a lot, and then you want to share with others, that's worth sharing, and that you want to get other people involved in. That's where I would start.
Right, that whole personalism aspect, right? Like, why did you join? Or ask yourself, why did I join SIGRO? What did I hope to gain from SIGRO? What can I contribute or give back to SIGRO? I think those are the 3 questions we should be asking ourselves, again, while we're undergrads, after we graduate, and think about that. How can I give? Instead of waiting for the fraternity to set up something, ask yourself, what can I do to stay connected? How can I be connected with the fraternity? Awesome.
Right. And that will then answer the question of what the fraternity can do for you. I mean, it's very much a dialectic in that sense. But you have to be able to, it has to start somewhere, right? The organization's only as strong as the people in it. And if they don't give back, there'll be nothing for others to benefit from.
Right. So it can't be done forcefully. Like you said, it has to be something that you want to do, and you have to see it for yourself to appreciate it and try to apply it to your life. Definitely agree.
Absolutely.
Any last words you want to share with us?
Be the change you want to see in the organization. It's such a cliche, but in all things in life, but in the organization, if you don't like something, try and change it. Don't let bureaucracy get in the way. Don't let red tape get in the way. We're still a young organization. Like there's nothing that's inviolate. There's nothing that's untouchable. Things can change. So you don't like something, you think it could be better, make it happen. Take ownership. Do it.
Awesome. Thank you again. I know you're extremely busy with your pursuing a PhD now in Scotland. So with the time changes and everything. So I definitely appreciate you taking a few minutes, spend time with me and discussing this for our 5th LDP session. So
always, man, it's so good to reconnect. And of course, there are so few brothers in the UK. I mean, none in Scotland that I'm aware of. I've already checked. So it's great to have an opportunity to connect.
Awesome. All right. Take care. All right.
All right. Much love, Roddy.
Yes, sir. Take care. Stay on. All right.
All right.
This is the end of the 5th session. Thank you, guys.